Public transportation is one of the most crucial aspects of urban development. It reduces traffic congestion, it gives opportunities for people who can't afford or don't want a car. It promotes sustainable cities, and it's much more comfortable than being stuck in traffic. When provided with a well-designed and convenient system, a lot of people will use public transportation instead of driving.
Here in Brookline, the main form of public transportation is the MBTA's Green Line light rail system.
And it works when it's not delayed or stuck in traffic or completely full of drunken Red Sox fans after the ball game.
Red Sox fans usually take the D line, which is the most convenient for me because they think Fenway Station is the closest stop to Fenway Park when it's actually Kenmore.
The Green Line serves a dense metropolitan area, but most people in its vicinity can't depend on the trains to consistently arrive on time.
You don't usually expect the Green Line to be on time because it's just never on time. I usually just ignore the number in the station and just kind of hope it comes whenever.
The Green Line is restricted in some areas in Brookline at speeds of 6 miles per hour, and that's not even counting the traffic that might slow it down further. Because yes, the trains get stuck in traffic. So to find out more about how these problems affected commuters, we interviewed Brookline residents who take the T to find out what their thoughts were, and unsurprisingly, it wasn't very difficult to find people willing to complain.
The C line just stopped. There was something wrong with the train. They shut down everything and we never made it.
Just shut down completely and just stopped.
The train didn't come for over 30 minutes.
Just waiting for the train for 20 more minutes and then I'm late.
There was this one time on a rainy day where the entire line was shut down.
If I tried getting on the C or the D at Kenmore, I would probably be waiting for over 20 minutes to fight my way into a train.
I enjoy mouthing off about the T, actually.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Unsurprisingly, the most common and obvious problem riders have had is reliability.
I was taking it into school one day. I was already coming out of my house late, and I ended up getting on a train that took a full 15 minutes to get to the station, then proceeded to go express by the next stop, as there's a train right behind it. The train after that then proceeded to not pick anyone up from that station, continue moving along, and I had to wait for another 5 minutes before the next train came, which ultimately ended up me being around 10 minutes late to my class.
Delays, express trains, speed restrictions are all, unfortunately, things that we've come to expect. The MBTA has worked on these issues, but it hasn't seemed to make a visible difference.
I don't think I've noticed a single improvement or change.
First off, there has been lots of track work to improve the speed restrictions, one such example being a shutdown for construction on the B branch, but this was only after a derailment happened at Packard's Corner Station.
I think the T has this really bad habit of, we're really good at crisis management. We're really good at responding to things when things fall apart. We are not good at sort of saying, hey, here's the long-term plan. Here's what we need to do. I've been at the MBTA for about 12 and a half years, but I've been in the public transit industry for a little over 23 years. In the time that I've been at the T, simple things like the countdown clocks that I think everybody takes for granted, those came online. I had a number of initiatives where we moved off of pen and paper into a computer and just managing daily operations. We've really doubled down our efforts in better data management, better data analysis. Maintaining a system like the T, or maintaining any transit system for that matter, takes a lot of foresight, takes a lot of vision. I think one of the hardest things that we're faced with right now is everybody is seeing how much we are having such a hard time keeping the tracks updated, keeping the signal system online, keeping our station safe. That didn't happen overnight. And I think one of the big things that I hope that we will see and what will come out of this and what we're doing is anybody who's a leader that is making decisions for an agency like the T has to look at the long game. We get very short-sighted sometimes. Maintenance was deferred for many, many years. There wasn't really a strong plan in place. Everything just it worked. It was fine until it doesn't.
One way that the Green Line Transformation Project is trying to improve infrastructure is through the Green Line Train Protection System. This new signaling system will increase reliability and safety by improving train communication and reducing human error by directly slowing or stopping trains via track signals. This system is set to be completed by June of 2025, and only time will tell if it manages to solve train communication issues that cause backups, frequent stops, and slow speeds. But
By far, the biggest upcoming development is the new Type 10 supercar. These new trains will solve so many issues. They're 40 feet longer than the current cars, which will accommodate large volumes of passengers. They allow for level boarding at every accessible station and have loads of new safety features.
It's a lot of planning, it's a lot of design work to think through about how, when these Type 10s come in, are the platforms long enough? Are they accessible? Does the placement of the stations make sense? What happens when we have to move from just one Type 10 car to two Type 10 cars and we have to really lengthen the platforms? I mean, I'm thinking of everything from hoists to pits to roofing structures and weight limits. I mean, it's just, there's so many other things that go on that have to go on behind the scenes in order to have something like a new shiny car show up and get them ready.
One issue, however, can't be resolved by just improving the MBTA-owned infrastructure. How do we stop these trains carrying up to 400 passengers from getting slowed down by cars most likely just carrying one?
In general, the train should not have to wait for a car. You've got a train with 40 people on it waiting for 4 people in 4 SUVs to turn left. That shouldn't be true. I know there's been talk about that, but somehow it doesn't get done.
Well, the solution is a little more complicated because it lies outside of the MBTA's jurisdiction.
TSP, transit signal priority. You've probably seen it with like ambulances or like emergency service vehicles. When they're approaching an intersection, they can get priority where the light will stay green for them. The idea being is we would love to see something similar along the Green Line. TSP isn't necessarily something that falls under Green Line transformation, so I can't exactly speak to where it is or where it is in the process. But what I will say generally is that the idea of trying to give Green Line trains priority takes a lot of coordination because it's not in its own dedicated right of way. And obviously that's why we want to do it. So it requires a lot of coordination and a lot of partnering with the cities and towns we service because we're affecting their traffic patterns. Anything that we would install would have to be within their system and work within their timing and all those things. So it takes a lot of work. I think we all think, let's give Green Lines the priority. Obviously, we're moving more people. That's not necessarily always sort of obvious to people. Cars usually take priority. So it's really hard to say, I wanted to give the train an extra 5 seconds or an extra 10 seconds. Well, but that could be, 10 cars that get through the intersection. You always have to sort of explain it and try to work out the math for people. And I'll tell you, it's a challenge. It's a challenge in a lot of ways.
TSP is sadly something I wouldn't expect in the near future, but something I would expect, mostly because it's a federal requirement, is expanded accessibility features. The Americans with Disabilities Act requires that station platforms shall be positioned to coordinate with vehicles, i.e., level boarding for riders with disabilities. It's also important that the platforms themselves be accessible, which typically entails elevators or ramps. But construction work towards these accessibility standards is a little more complicated than it seems.
I mean, I need 18 months just to straighten out what I like to say is the utility spaghetti underneath the ground, so I can drill 4 holes into the ground so that I can put elevators in. It takes a lot of work. And when you think about the last few stations in the downtown core, they are complex. We talk about trying to eventually make Boylston Station fully accessible. And we're talking about historical landmarks, geological barriers, just the sheer geometry of the site, while it's in probably one of the busiest spots in the city. To make them fully accessible will take a lot of work and a lot of coordination.
Progress has been made, but since some portions of the Green Line date back to 1897, making it the oldest subway line in North America, planners are dealing mostly with infrastructure that is as old as the system itself. 40 of the 70 Green Line stops are accessible, but most of them are newer constructions, and the stops in Brookline are very dated.
10 of Brookline's 17 train stations are currently not accessible, and that's not even considering several more stations on the B and E lines that will serve Brookline residents.
We're hoping by the end of next year that the D branch will be 100% fully accessible with the upgrades that we're planning for the last 5 stations. We are progressing there. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of coordination to really drive the change.
The T as a whole is making accessibility a priority in their newer constructions, but Brookline is a very old town with very old train and streetcar infrastructure, and it's going to take a lot of work to make the Green Line accessible for everyone.
One of the most common complaints that commuters have is the long waits. This is a result of the understaffing that has plagued the MBTA since the COVID-19 pandemic. So, to address this, on December 16th of 2021, the MBTA board approved a contract with the Local 589 union, also known as the Carmen's Union.
My name is Scott Page. My title is Delegate to the Executive Board of Local 589. I represent Division 2, which is the Green Line and Light Rail OCC. So we represent all of the operators. We also represent bus and streetcar dispatchers. We represent the people who fix the trains as well as the people who fix the tracks. I got hired in 2014 as a streetcar motor person. Shortly after that, I got active and involved in our union. And my job now is to deal with anything and everything from an employee's perspective that has to deal with the T and specifically the Green Line. The new contract not only significantly raises the wages of everybody on property, it also gives incentives to long-term employees to stick around longer, but it also incentivizes new people to come here and stay here. A lot of people today, particularly young people, right? They look at jobs and they think, well, this is my gig, right? I'm going to do this for a little while and I'm going to go somewhere else and try something else. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but that's not what we do with the T. The T is an investment in a career. And at first, it's not easy and it's not fun, right? You don't make a whole lot of money at first. Your hours are terrible. But what you're doing is you're investing in a career, right? And the idea is that if you're investing in it and you stay with it and you build with it, it'll eventually give you the tools necessary to build a life. You know, our role is to secure the strongest contract that we can, right? And then in turn, keep people who are here, but also attract new employees to come and buy into that model, right? And I have a lot of faith that our new contract is going to do that. It's going to make it more palatable to deal with this tough stuff at the beginning, like the bad schedules and the loss of holidays and all that. But it's also more importantly going to keep people here who could otherwise retire and leave. Those are the folks that I think we really need to pay attention to because they know stuff, right? We cannot afford to lose institutional knowledge. How do we make it palatable to deal with the bad stuff? The way you do that is you secure a good contract. And I think we've done that. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
But the company is still thousands of workers short of what it needs to manage its current system and desperately needs more funding to increase hiring.
The best change we've seen is the election of Maura Healey. I never want to sort of sit here and tell people how to feel politically. I don't think that's my role, especially when I talk to my members. I don't feel like that's my role. A pro-transit politician or a pro-transit agenda is going to deliver better transit results. So when we have good leadership at the agency, we can do good things as employees, and we can try to then turn that into better results for the public.
Better pay and work conditions don't just benefit the workers. The system is better off as a whole when the workers are treated fairly and are motivated to do such an important job.
It's as frustrating for an operator to be stuck in a tunnel as it is for the person standing behind them. And so we certainly get that. You know, if you've ever been stuck on a Green Line trolley and thought, you know, am I going to make it to my meeting or my class or my Red Sox game or whatever else, just know that there's a person in a blue shirt thinking, am I going to make it in time for dinner? Or am I going to make it, you know, to pick up my kid? So it's a frustration that we share.
We're working on a lot of stuff right now. I think the biggest area for improvement right now is the state of good repair. I think that it's not just about the work itself and doing the work. Yeah, I can go out there and I can replace a rail and a tie and the train will run fine. But as we started at the top of this conversation, if we don't have a system in place to ensure that the funding and the resources are aligned to ensure that that track is inspected and is maintained and has a replacement plan, you know, we're going to run into the same exact problem in, 30, 35, 40 years. We still have a long way to go with it. And so every surge that you see, every diversion that we have, we're getting better about getting ahead of it, being communicative in a timely manner, making sure that the public knows what's going on, making sure that we have the resources available to assist the public, and making sure that we actually can get the work done behind the scenes.
The Green Line has a long way to go. The MBTA knows this, the town of Brookline knows this, and Commuters know this. With all the work being done to improve the reliability of Brookline's vital public transportation network, we're bound to see some improvements, but they come at a cost. Lots of work needs to be done to overhaul such a dated system, and it needs to come from compromise and cooperation.
I do have hope for the future.
It's sort of more prominent now for people to look at how other cities and institutions run their transportation and think, why can't it be this convenient for me?
I do have hope. I worry a lot, but I do have hope. We've got new people in the state administration. I'm hoping that there's going to be a top to bottom reform of the T generally to get procedures functioning. And I'm hoping there's going to be more money. Clearly the whole system needs more money. And so I do have hope, but I worry that it's going to take an awfully long time.
I kind of have to have. It's my main form of movement throughout the city, so if I don't have hope, what do I have?
There's really no way to go but up, and we can definitely go up.